Yeah, once again, thank you very much for coming, and it's a very interesting. I hope the wonderful discussion today. And first of all, so could we have your self-introductions and briefly for
Yeah, so basically I'm a student from the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. Uh, I am currently working on Industry 4.0 solutions, and I've extensively worked on platforms like AI. I've basically been working on blockchain as well. And I'm looking forward to finding intersections between these technologies and see how they can shape the future. So basically finding the problem and then delivering solutions at an independent and a collaborative level.
Okay, thank you very much. Next.
Hi, my name is Mukta Arora. I'm the Group CIO of Aster DM Healthcare. So I come and share the stage with my young colleague because it's something which they generate and I put out to practice. And I guess, you know, we are here talking some context around AI and blockchain and how do they confluence and merge together.
Hello, I'm Gotham. Most of my work involves consulting people and companies in AI and blockchain. I've worked mostly on robotics, and I'm working mostly in industry. Although I had a background in research, so instead of like researching a new algorithm, I try to implement an already researched algorithm in industry, like a state of the art. So most of the work goes on in like bringing research to the industry, pretty much similar to what previously has been discussed. And and also work in blockchain in terms of like architecturing the structure from engineering standpoint, as in like scaling the whole thing, getting to work at multiple places so that like it doesn't crash. How do we make it back up? How do we make it sure that it doesn't just collapse all of a sudden because it has to work in all cases? So like those are the kind of problems that I deal with.
Hi, my name is Freddie. I have an educational background in data science, and I've entered the blockchain space for a few different companies as an advisor. And I'm mostly interested in bringing data science and blockchain together, and particularly with decentralized AI.
Okay, thank you very much. And this time I have 4 questions to discuss about AI and blockchains. First of all, let me start general and basic understanding for the AI and blockchains. There's a lot of science about AI and blockchains, and everybody knows that everybody's talking about AI and blockchain today. But what are these technologies? What is about it? Can you give us the overall idea briefly?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about AI like it's some kind of supercomputer that's going to take over the world. And a lot of people think it's the brain. It's like a lot of computers joined together working like a brain. And there's like neurons and stuff like that, like a computer is a neuron. But actually, AI is just a mathematical equation. It's just an equation that gives you a positive or a negative value. And based on that, you classify things. So like, is this a bottle? Or is it not? It's basically a very simple AI. So like, if you think about AI, it's not such a it has existed since 1980s and before. It's a very simple thing. The thing is like, right now, these days, the computation power has increased. The memory we can have a lot of data stored, like terabytes of data processed. So that's why AI has become popular, but it's a very simple mathematical equations that previously were used in statistics. And now we are applying it on computer science, which is called machine learning, basically. So, yeah, that's what AI is. And I think Shaksham would be a better person to answer what is blockchain.
So blockchain, I believe, is what the internet was 20 years before. And it has the scope and the potential to address a lot of problems that are existing in the world by means of what it has to offer. Internet was able to solve a lot of problems. It was able to connect us. It eased out the financial aspects. It eased out communication between different people in a lot of different ways. But what it could not do, And something that's required is trust and disintermediation. So trust wasn't achieved. When we are talking about trust basically comes when you know that whatever you are planning or whatever you are hitting, whatever button you are pressing, that is going through a direct channel. You know for a fact that everything is right and there is no one else to influence your entire system. So the basic thing is, when you are on a blockchain, you have decentralized everything. The power is not centralized. You are basically talking about all people governing themselves and those network to be the one that is actually administering what's gonna happen. So blockchain is a very, very useful technology, and I believe it is not to be confused with cryptocurrency because they are two diverse fields. And cryptocurrency is one of the applications of blockchains and one of the features that is required for the maintenance of the systems that a blockchain has to offer.
I think I'll just add to what my colleague said here. So from a blockchain perspective, I think there's a lot of understanding issue in general, as we see in the audience today. But let's look at what internet is. So internet, we've all seen last 20 years how from a peer-to-peer network, it has started to become something that we can't live without. It's like electricity or a water for us these days, right? But can you trust people who are behind scenes in the internet? Can I have a true identity? Can I false my identity? There is a communication gap which existed, or a distance gap which existed, which internet bridged, but was it able to bridge the trust issue, as my colleague just said, right? Blockchain brings the concept of transparency, the concept of identity proof, thereby creating an environment of trust. So if we put, so that one thing which was missing in internet era was trust, and blockchain brings that, and if we amalgamate both internet and blockchain, that's something which will be ideal for the society. That's why the power of blockchain is talked about these days in such an extensive manner.
So I'll just add to what's been said by looking at blockchain from a few different perspectives. So just from a really basic practical level, blockchain is a way for you and me to transact value or information digitally without a trusted third party or intermediary. So the most obvious example is cryptocurrencies to replace existing monetary systems like banks. That's transacting digital e-cash, which is how Bitcoin was originally described in the white paper in 2008. But the implications extend far beyond cryptocurrency. It can go into something like music or messaging or ride sharing or sharing your apartment. So anything that's in the current Web 2.0, at least most of the things, can be put in a decentralized platform instead with blockchain. So the first blockchain was Bitcoin, and that was for monetary systems, and now we're seeing new blockchains, evolving blockchains like Ethereum for smart contracts where you can transact far more types of information, and we're seeing newer models come out.
Okay, thank you very much. We, right here, right now, we already found the important keywords, my opinions. Everybody talks about the trust and the transparency and the transactions. It's very important basic point for the blockchain to be discussed. But one question's otherwise, why are people trying to connect these technologies like AI and blockchains? I think the both technologies, AI and blockchain, is very important. Are very important technologies to build or rebuild the kind of the trust and the transparency and the transactions, but they seem very difficult and different. How do you think about it?
So, yeah, it is very true. Like AI and blockchain they have nothing in common. It's like talking horses and clouds. like trying to find similarity between those. But the reason why these two technologies are being merged is because, as previously mentioned, we need policies governing AI. Because right now, if you think about it, most of the AI that is being developed, the state-of-the-art AI research papers that are being published are all by few corporates. It's in Google, DeepMind, like Google's DeepMind, Google's other research branches, Facebook Research, Amazon. Amazon is investing heavily in AI. We just saw that. So think about it like if you think about like the billionaires that are sitting on top of these companies, they pretty much are leading the AI, which is a good thing. They are making AI, but we need a way so that these institutions are not the only one that have access to it. It's like AI is being developed, could be developed by you and me, anyone. Then if we don't have the data, we can't really use that AI, right? So in order to do that, in order to make sure that AI is not in the hands of few people, we need a decentralization, which is what, and we need a trust. We need a trust in the sense that if I develop an AI, I need to make sure that I get the credit for it, and not just that I get the credit for it, it doesn't get out of control, and other peers are verifying it. And that's where blockchain comes in. I think Freddie will be able to answer that better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with that decentralization is a way to make, via the blockchain, is a way to make AI just a more fair, equitable process so that more people can benefit from it as opposed to just a few large centralized giants like Google or Facebook or Amazon. So we could look at it more specifically. So basically, effective AI comes generally down to two things. It comes down to strong algorithms and data. And the AI algorithms are already open sourced. So if you look at something like TensorFlow or Keras, we already have these popular, extremely powerful open source libraries. But the data that's being used is kind of the secret sauce for this that these companies are holding back, which makes sense. But that means if you want to benefit from AI as any individual, you don't have the same resources that these large companies do. So these large companies end up benefiting from an extremely powerful technology. So with blockchain, one way you could kind of counter that is with tokenomics platforms. So tokenomics is creating cryptocurrency incentives to get users to behave in a certain way. So one example of that would be giving users tokens for sharing their data to improve AI models. So the way this could play out is, let's say you have health data and you want to be compensated for that health data. You could receive a certain token that could be later exchanged for fiat, and you would share your health data to strengthen AI models. And now if this is in a decentralized platform, now you have far more data than even companies like Google have, because now anyone in the world can provide their data and they're actually incentivized to do so. Also, you'll have even more talent than these giants have, because just think how many engineers are working at Google versus engineers not working at Google. Obviously a lot more in the latter. So if you have anyone in the world can provide their talent, their data, and their resources to a network, you could potentially create not just more equitable and fair AIs, but AIs that are a lot more powerful. And that also comes into discussions with how exactly you would create the more powerful AIs. How would, for example, different AIs communicate in the network? And that brings a lot of discussion as well with blockchain.
So there's an interesting twist to what my friend just said. So we've all talked about AI, and we've seen the good part and the bad part of the AI. So what is concerning us all is the bad part of the AI, right? So we all want, what if this does not behave well and it's a threat to human race, as we saw Elon Musk and other scientists talking about it. Guess what? Let's say we have AI. Who vets this AI? Whether the AI is right or wrong? Will it say, is it a bottle or a glass? Who vets this? So if we were to create a network of people who are unbiased and who act as vettors, that is what blockchain will do for AI. And I don't think there will be a platform of AI without a blockchain in the years to come. It's exactly like we've seen a confluence of cloud technology, IoT, and all the devices, storage coming along together in the internet time and era. And today we can't believe one technology not working along with the other to be able to provide a solution. I think that's where we are heading. We cannot have AI, and and in the hands of just a few, because as we all understand that AI will mimic human behavior and it will work like human along with humans. So like we cannot have all humans put together under one umbrella with one company and one organization. Likewise, AI is going to sit across our minds, and if we have resources like blockchain, we are there. We win the game as humans.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. One of the things that I will ask all of you to do in your free time is just go to Facebook and see the amount of data that you have on Facebook, and the Facebook have your data. Like you have a download option on Facebook and Google to download just your data. You'll be surprised. It's in GB sometimes, like if you're a constant Facebook user, because the videos you share, the images you share. So like this huge amount of data that is your data, it's your personal information. So if you look at the cases like Cambridge Analytics that happened with Facebook and the Trump case about like the politics being influenced right now, like if you think about like president of US, there's some probability that he was elected because of Facebook and because of your data that you sent on Facebook. So at this point, it's not just like the AI is not just about like it's just a remote thing that is not affecting you. Blockchain, so these things are actually your personal data being used against you to manipulate your thoughts. They show you the articles that you wanna see. If you're pro-liberal, they'll show you liberal-based article. If you're pro-conservative, they'll show you conservative articles. So like your data is being used against yourself, and this is not okay. You should own your data. You should have the right to choose the information you want to see. It should be unbiased. And who's deciding that? Right now, if Facebook makes an algorithm showing you post that some guy is a bad person, like it starts showing you like Freddy is just a bad person. He's an evil manipulator of the world. And then you see him everywhere on every article. And then you'd be like, okay, yeah, Freddy's a terrible person because that's what Facebook is showing you. That's what on Google, like everyone shows you. So like at this point, you're not getting an unbiased information. You may think your news is unbiased, but it's not. And how do we make sure that it's unbiased is through blockchain, because then it's verified with multiple peers. It's not just, I cannot just write an article against him and just make it go popular, and because in blockchain, you have a verification from multiple peers, so it's not gonna happen. And this is where the direction the world should lead, but it's not leading that way. It's right now leading towards the way where Facebook and as he said, like it can predict, Amazon can, or like e-commerce can predict right now what we're gonna buy before we actually buy it. So like at this point, are we making our decisions? How do we make sure that we do make our decisions? That's where like blockchain comes in, and the trust comes in, and the peer-to-peer things comes in.
I believe another angle to look at this convergence of these technologies would be in its hardware sense. If I talk about an Industry 4.0 solution, what does it target? It basically targets the network of all the systems, all the sensors that we have within an industry. It uses AI to predict things that are going to happen. It uses blockchain for its supply chain management. It uses all these technologies together to handle these functions very, very optimally. And that is one aspect to look at it. Apart from the software aspect, I believe, where we talk about blockchain forming the basis of transactions, asset management, and other ideas that govern it, I believe that artificial intelligence is applied within the system that we are setting up for ourselves. If I have 100 sensors, each of those sensors can have a transaction that may not be meaningful for us, but there are certain operations that can be carried out and there are a certain track record that can be set with these operations in hand.
Thank you very much.
So another dimension to this is like Professor Gupta pointed out on policy. There's a lot of policy issue around AI. So I strongly believe that blockchain is going to play a major part in implementation of such policies. That's a thought.
I'd like to add to that. I believe as Dubai has planned to put all its policies on a blockchain platform, even directing is a major form of artificial intelligence confluence with it. So there are certain studies which suggest that people are not aware of what they need to do, and you need a system upon that that can suggest you that you need to carry out this transaction or you need to proceed in a particular direction. So I believe when you have an artificial intelligence equipped interface to do so, you will be better able to communicate with the blockchain peer-to-peer network and have the entire thing sorted out.
Yeah, I'll also add that, kind of just adding to what's been said, blockchain can also be used as a way to, in a way, regulate AI in a decentralized way. So instead of having centralized regulations in terms of what AI is optimizing for, you have the users of a network decide what the AI should optimize for. So there's a common idea in the space called the paperclip maximizer problem, which is the idea that you have an artificial intelligence that's designed to produce as many paperclips as possible with no human parameters in mind, just make as many paperclips as possible. If you just let this AI run free, like let's say on a blockchain, now it's immutable, it's indestructible, it goes on forever, it'll just consume all of Earth's resources and just make like infinite paperclips. And this obviously seems super far-fetched and kind of like a useless idea, but if you look at Bitcoin, it's basically an autonomous life that's on the blockchain. No one can destroy it. You would need vast amounts of computing power that no one has to shut down Bitcoin. And it's basically optimizing for hash rate or energy consumption. It's just consuming huge amounts of electricity, which is already damaging the environment. So instead of having these autonomous life forms or AIs on the blockchain, just optimizing for problems with no human parameters in mind, you could use blockchain to put certain parameters in place that then ensure you have AI that's actually helping people.
Yeah, so like if you think about it, like AI and blockchain are quite contrary to each other. Like AI in a way is probabilistic. Like you must have heard the term, even if you're not from AI background, is that this AI is 99% accurate or 98% accurate. And so like AI is probabilistic. AI can never be sure something is like 100% correct unless we hard code it, and that's not AI anymore. So the thing is like it works on probability. And if you think about like the way blockchain works, if you go into detail of it, it's like we have verification from multiple peers, and what wins is like most peers says this is right. So like it's in a way it's contradicting in the way that AI is probabilistic, but blockchain is deterministic because it always works on binary fashion where the voting like the peers vote the most as the correct data is like it's okay to join as the next block to the blockchain that wins and adds the block. So that's why like if it's like AI is not yet certain about a certain parameter. If we put AI on blockchain, then we are combining two different technologies. One is probabilistic based, and another is deterministic based, and we are trying to merge these together. So it kind of like enhances the power of AI as two folds, multiple folds. So it's not just about policy; it's also about like the kind of use cases we can drive out of it, because then we can have. We can do things with certain level of probability and certain level of determinism to achieve our results. So it's like technically these two things are helping each other in the areas where they lack, and they're trying to complement each other and making better use cases and producing better result.
I believe one more thing that we can have artificial intelligence and blockchain converge to is the value that we are supplying within a blockchain. So if you are aware about Bitcoin, Bitcoin basically emphasizes on the value of work for verification. Now, if you basically want to change from that parameter to get something more realistic and something more fair to the users, that would require a value of merit or a value of competency. So if you have to, quantify that quantity, that would be very difficult. And for that particular matter, what is optimal for the entire network can be quantified as that quantity using the artificial intelligence algorithms that would be built for the same.
Very, very exciting discussions there. So I think we, all of you, we are feeling that this is a time, this is a moment to move, to shift the decentralizations of not only the computer structures, network structures, but of the society structures as well. And that's why everybody think about the importance of the optimization based on the artificial intelligence, but also we feel the kind of fears about the artificial intelligence optimizations. And so we look forward to kind of the other opportunities, the blockchains. Blockchains are based, and the technology is based on the decentralizations, and we can use the kind of the technology for the rebuild our society, our rules, orders of our societies. But my third questions. I roughly understand what we talk about and how we talk about, but a little complicated. So what is the current status, state of the kind of these technologies? What is the state of the arts in today's, and what kind of the problem will be here?
Yeah, so in regards to the current state of blockchain, there are a lot of problems that make truly meaningful and at-scale decentralized applications impossible. So we can't really have anything like a decentralized Facebook or a decentralized Spotify at the moment. And one reason for that is scalability issues. So if you look at Ethereum, I believe the number of transactions per second on that platform is something like 20 transactions per second, which is just not nearly fast enough or efficient enough to have a large at-scale platform. Another problem would be that there's massive waste in terms of computational resources in a lot of the blockchain platforms. So currently, Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, are using proof of work. And with proof of work, miners are performing arbitrary computations, and only a small % of the computations are used to actually verify that a transaction was legitimate, and the rest of the computational energy is just discarded and was never used for anything meaningful. So you have a lot of computational waste in these blockchain platforms.
Yeah, so there's like, I'm not sure if it's already been implemented, but like instead of like right now, blockchains being, when you're verifying a next block, right now it's like instead of verifying through all the peers, just verifying at the next peer. So even if like we don't have to verify like 100% of the population using that blockchain or mining that blockchain, we can just have like a certain set, a certain subset of like, if it's like, you don't have to verify like 1 million people, if all the million, with all the million miners. If you verified like with 5,000, that's already a pretty good number. If it's like out of 5,000, 4,000 agree that it's okay, then it's probably fine. We don't need to go through all through the million. So like right now, this is another discussion that is being put onto it. And if you come into AI terms, like I know we talked a bit about like artificial general intelligence, but we are really far from it, because yeah, AI can solve like very specific problem pretty good, but it doesn't really scale in the way that it solves one problem, so it can also solve other problem. If you think about like, it's like saying because I can cook food and I can drive a scooter, those two AIs, like a self-driving scooter AI and a cooking AI, if you want to connect those two, it's close to impossible right now. It's very, very far ahead. So there's like discussion about meta AI and AI that will decide on the task that each AI will do. Those are very slow to train. So like if you were to train an AI that will tell, oh, this is a cooking AI or this is a driving AI, how do you divide these problems? An AI cannot, like, AI taking over the world is like AI doing literally everything. Artificial general intelligence is a thing that AI does everything. And that kind of computation power is, like, if we employ all the computers in the world right now, we probably couldn't achieve that. So that is like a true general intelligence. We are far from it. Right now what we are at is like solving very specific problems. So like a reinforcement learning algorithm that plays a Mario, and people think, oh, now AI can play Mario, so it can now take over the world. But no, it's not, because it just plays Mario. Mario is a very simple game with 4 places you can go: left, right, up, and down. And it's just a screen. The Mario AI cannot be used to drive a scooter or a car. It cannot be used for cooking. In fact, it cannot even be used to play the next stage of Mario. Like, if it plays one stage of the Mario, it cannot play the next one. So the reason is like the AI plays that one stage of the Mario for like 1,000 times before it makes even a small progress. So if you think about like an AI that plays all the stages of Mario better than human, that's very far. But things like games like Alpha, like there's like Go, the game of Go, the game of other games in which AI has been progressing, that has been mainly because it has a very constant loss function. And very simple, like in reinforcement learning, you can just say that, hey, this is my action and this is the reward. And in those cases, defining a reward or an action is very simple, because action is like movement of a certain character, and reward is when what you get, like your score changes, that's a reward. But if you talk about like applying that AI in driving, we don't have a reward. We don't get, like when you drive a scooter from this point to that point, your score doesn't change. You're not inside a game. So those are very different problems. They solve in a very different way. It's far from like using the same AI in multiple places. So yeah, these technologies are still a lot to evolve, I feel.
Yeah, coming from industry background and with industry experience, I would say both are at the very nascent evolution stage, and we need to still witness years of growth and evolution happening to be able to say, well, you know, AI is what we expect it will be, because, you know, this is how internet, if we've all witnessed internet revolution 20 years back when it came up. Nobody, we felt email was internet, and nobody even could fathom what internet could do. Other than e-commerce, these days, almost everything is on internet. Right? In addition to e-commerce, I meant. Likewise, when we look at, you know, what's the current state? So from a production or a industry background, well, nothing is productionable. Per se, they can solve a narrow problem, or they are called narrow AIs for now. As my friend said, we are way, the general AI is way beyond still. On the blockchain side, again, this is evolutionary. So there are problems of scale, there are problems of storage, there are problems of compute, while we also witness, on the other hand, we've all seen Azure, right? Microsoft Azure, the storage platform. Well, that runs on a blockchain. So that's the extent the blockchain can happen. But from a day-to-day industry perspective, these are early days.
I believe that the current state of blockchain and AI are restricted by adoption. Adoption both by the governments, the policymakers, as well as the people who are using it. So as he mentioned that there are nearly just 20 transactions that are conducted on the Ethereum platform. And if you just compare it with financial giants like PayPal, they have 100 million transactions. And we can see that there is a lack of adoption by communities. India has banned cryptocurrencies for some matter because they feel that that leads to a lot of violation of their laws. But if we need a decentralized system and we need global connectivity in terms of finance or in terms of regulatory technologies, we basically need the governments to realize what blockchain in its essence carries, how it can be used with artificial intelligence, and what is the future scope of this entire thing?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I feel like at this day and age, a lot of government-based politicians and the policy makers are technically not that strong, and this generation that we live in is very technically advanced. Like we will, and probably like this is the internet generation. Like the kids that are born these days, or like were born even 10 years ago, they cannot imagine a world without internet. Like for example, connected to someone in the US while sitting in Japan, or right now we have people sitting in Bangalore seeing this live. 30 years ago, this would be a dream. People would be saying no one is gonna do that. That's impossible. Like 50 years ago, if you would have told someone this is gonna happen, they're gonna laugh at it. So thing is, like, the policymakers, the AI and blockchain and these techs are coming, but people who are making policies for these things, or like people who are making policies for countries, are way behind it. They need to be educated on these things, and that's like also a concern in that connecting like blockchain and AI, as you said, it's complicated technologies, and they're very complicated and very different in their working. We need to make sure that people are educated about it, and especially the policymakers, the big people, the people in the top who are like 50-year-old. They think they seem uninterested, or they think it's just some kids' game going on, but it's not. In 50 years from now, we'll be having a completely different world, and we need to connect these things and make it happen. And that's why blockchain is important, because in blockchain, these peers are verifying each other, and people are forming communities. So for example, if you look at Bitcoin is like the reason Bitcoin has issues, or people have a negative image about it, is not because of the algorithm. Like, algorithm never actually failed. The people that failed is building the architecture behind Bitcoin. People who are creating these exchanges, their system got hacked. So if you look at it, what got hacked, it's not the Bitcoin. It's the people who are like creating this exchange. They were not smart enough, or they didn't employ smart enough engineers to build a secure enough system so that people cannot hack into it. So Bitcoin didn't fail. What failed, that these technologies did not fail. What failed is the people behind it, because of their lack of education. I feel like these technologies should be part of educative curriculum in school these days.
I believe like that's the problem when you consider the area of intermediation. So the people that are providing platforms to work on these technologies, they are basically thinking of being an intermediator. And when that happens, that basically violates the basic principle of the blockchain itself. So that is one issue that pertains to this very thing. Another thing I believe, like what leads to the problem in adoption, is the distribution of power that would occur if we are using a particular blockchain. So when we are using blockchain, you, along with millions of people, are forming a collective governance. And that leads to a reduction in power of those who currently have them. So if you talk about it at the policy level, there are a lot of people who would not prefer the implementation of blockchain on a national level or at a global level, just because their stake in the entire game is reduced.
Yeah, so there are technical issues, technology is evolving, there are policy issues, policymakers do not understand, there is a learning issue. Not everyone of us, because it's a nascent days, are at the same learning level. There are issues like centralization of power, which kind of gets hit by the sheer concept of it. These are the current problems, and we call it adoption. We call it, we're not there yet. We call it industry does not have money to invest or experiment. But whatever said and done, I think the way we've seen the last revolution and World Economic Forum has already said, this is the fourth revolution in making. So these are just the time will take care of these, I think.
Wonderful discussions, and I would like to continue the kind of discussions because I have a background of the government activities, and I was working for the OECD discussions or the AI and blockchains, but I had the experience to fail make the consensus because they didn't have any common underground understanding of the technological issues, and not only the technical issues, but also the political, the ethical issues as well. So there's very complicated situations, but we need to harmonize not only the international affairs, but also the understanding between technological understanding and ethical understanding, communal understanding, and societies, policies, as well. It's so complicated. We can make the consensus that this is a very complicated situation today. And the last questions. What is the future with the kind of the technologies? We understand today it's very complicated, but we need to move ahead.
So one of the things that is definitely going to happen is that right now I can see, like, at least my parents, they are even talking about, like, what is AI? They're like, they ask me, what job do you do? I say, I do it related to AI. They're always talking about it's on news. It's like there are news articles about AI fighting each other. I don't know, like there are news writers write all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that I can be sure about is, like, people will be a lot more educated and AI will be a part of our lifestyle. So a lot of people think that AI is gonna take over the world, but I personally, my opinion is, like, it's gonna assist people. As before it's been said, it's gonna help in removing the monotonous job that people already don't want to do, and they want to do something more productive. So, like, if you look at a country like Japan, it has a lot of things, like it has a lot of monotonous job that people would rather not do and do something innovative. As in, like, what? So when you're talking about monotonous job, there's someone who's deciding what monotonous job we should be doing. We could be doing those jobs, as in, like, deciding how we should be doing, improving the process of those monotonous jobs for one time, and then just creating an AI that will do those monotonous jobs. So this is where the jobs that will go away in, like, next 10 years is not something that is like a very hard job, but something that is monotonous, and already people could be doing something better. So I feel that's where the future of AI is going to be next 5 years.
That's what people said when the internet came to, like, that would lead to a lot of reduction in jobs. But I believe once such a field is introduced, there are other aspects in which people are able to, innovate and come up with new ideas that are going to develop the world further. I particularly believe, like, if you talk about the future of blockchains, definitely there will be, it's a distant dream for governments all over the globe to adopt such technologies. But I think initiatives should be made in that direction. And I think like UAE has a ministry specifically dedicated to artificial intelligence. These sort of initiatives from the government level would be visible within a few years itself.
Yeah, as far as future is concerned, let's look at present first. AI and blockchain have entered our lives already, and they are very subtle though. I mean, although we may not be kind of knowing, not everybody. Like, I see my father driving, he drives only with the use of Google Maps. He doesn't know he's already using AI. My mom calls for a cab, an Uber cab comes at the door. She doesn't know she's using AI. So it's already there. So look at the future. I mean, there are so many applications that we've seen today, presented. All of that is going to come by, and we're going to look at future like internet. We cannot live without internet. My feel is that 10 years hence, we would feel we cannot live without AI. I mean, it's exactly similar. If I have to drive car on UAE or Dubai roads, I cannot work without Waze. Waze is a application which is only meant for Dubai roads, right? So that's the first thing. The moment I open up my car door, that comes to my mind. I switch on the Waze first and then carry on. You know, that's what we think is the future. Looking at blockchain, Well, which government would not want there is a transparency in the system? At the end of the day, government core principle is to govern or provide governance to people and at large to society. And if there is such a system which is transparent, which is secured, which proves the identity, which is unhackable, which is unmutable, nobody can destroy it, which government wouldn't want? Some of the early adopters, like UAE government, they've already shared their land records and they've put the entire land records, real estate, onto blockchain. The second attempt or second initiative that they are taking is putting the identity, Emirates ID cards of every individual that is there in Dubai on blockchain. So I think there are governments who've realized the benefit early on, others would follow.
Yeah, so I think I can name a few government that would not wanna like implement it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Last minutes.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was going to speak to just the technical issues in the future. So I'm very optimistic about blockchain, and I don't think problems like scalability and computational waste are going to limit the possibilities of blockchain coming in the next few years. So with something like proof of work, most people already consider that outdated, and we're trying to get proof of stake in Ethereum, and newer blockchain models are coming out that are a lot more efficient. In regards to something like exchanges getting hacked, we're moving towards decentralized exchanges, so there's no single point of failure. So then you wouldn't have huge failures in these exchanges. So a lot of new technologies are coming out, and I don't think the current technical issues are the biggest problems in the way.
Thank you very much, Amos.